Hi, I'm Mark from eReplacementParts.com. In this video, I'm going to show you how to disassemble and reassemble the pump on a Karcher electric pressure washer. We'll get started by removing the covers, beginning by loosening the screws on the top cap. Now remove the screws on the back of the pressure washer that secure the front cover. And now I'll go ahead and remove the covers. Next, we need to remove the motor and pump assembly from the frame. It's held in place with this clamp, which is secured with 2 screws. The pump and switch assembly are clamped to the motor assembly with these 4 screws. As you remove these screws, you'll want to keep in mind that the springs on the pistons are pushing against the pump, so you'll need to hold it down a little bit. Next, I'll remove the inlet and outlet tubes. They're held in place with these metal forks. I just slide the forks out, and then the tube will come right off of the pump. Next, I'll remove the chemical injection tube, the metal clamping plate, and the switch. And now I can lift away the pump and piston assembly. Now we can go ahead and split our pump into its major components. I'll start by lifting the pump away from the piston assembly. Here we have the pistons, the piston cage, these spacers that separate the oil sills, and the inner oil sills. Now I can go ahead and split the pump manifold from the lower part of the pump. It's just held in place with an O-ring. The lower part of the pump consists of the valves and the upper oil sills. When you order this piece, it also includes this valve plate. On the manifold side of the pump, we find the injector cage and spring, as well as the injector. These parts would all be ordered separately. Also on our manifold, you'll find this check valve. The check valve is sold in a kit with the inlet elbow. The last piece on the manifold assembly that is sold separately is the chemical injector valve. The check valve comes with the manifold assembly. Now that you know a little bit about what's inside your electric pressure washer pump, I'll show you how to go ahead and reassemble it. We'll start with the chemical injection valve. On all of the O-rings inside the pump, I'm going to apply a little bit of silicone grease to them as I reassemble the pump. This will lubricate the ring and help to make everything go together a little bit better without the risk of tearing any of the O-rings. So I can just slide that back into the manifold assembly. Next, the check valve. Now I'll slide the injector back into the manifold. Now I'll place the injector cage into this small valve housing that comes with the lower part of the pump and the injector spring. I'll apply a little silicone grease to that O-ring. And press this back into the manifold side of the pump. Now I'll install this triangular O-ring onto the lower part of the pump. This one can be a little tricky to install. And once it's in place, I'll lubricate it and the O-ring on that inner valve plate that we installed on the manifold. And now I can press these two assemblies together. Now I can place the oil seal spacers back onto the piston housing and reinstall the pump onto the piston housing. You'll notice there's a tab on one side of the piston housing. That goes directly beneath the chemical injector valve. Like that. Now we can place the pump assembly and the switch back onto the motor. I'll start by setting the pump into the opening on the motor. Then I'll take the switch, and I need to align this slot with the tab on the piston plate, as well as the electrical connections on the motor, and this hole on the top of the switch. This is for the pressure switch, with the small pipe at the base of the unloader valve. With everything lined up, now replace the clamp plate and begin to secure it all with the screws. You'll have to apply some downward pressure to get the screws started because of the springs on the pistons. Now I'll install our inlet and outlet tubes, beginning with the inlet tube. The first half of the inlet tube just presses into the pump and gets secured with the metal fork. The second piece that contains the hose connector screws onto that first elbow. And now the outlet tube presses onto the pump and again is secured with a metal fork. Now I'll place the motor assembly back into the frame and secure it with the motor clamp. Before I install the clamp, I'll reinstall the chemical injection tube and route the chemical injection hose so that it doesn't get pinched by any part of the motor or pump or housings. On the back side of the housing, there's a groove for the chemical hose to go into. Then I can install the motor clamp. And now it's just a matter of replacing the covers. Hopefully this video will give you a little insight about the parts inside the pump on your Karcher electric pressure washer, and how to disassemble and reassemble the pump on your machine. If you found this video helpful, please feel free to leave a comment or ask us a question.